have a lot of worlds that are not public that I never that just stopped working on. But anyway, one that I could, I guess, audioOrbs. I'll talk about that one. That one's public. It For each theme, if you don't have music playing, every single theme like has its own like unique ambience that plays during that theme, and some of them will have like extra little sounds and stuff, and each one has its own set of footstep sounds and stuff like that. I think that really helps to feel like you're there, even though like for me it's like I'm so used to playing VR that I can never really get super lost anymore in VR because I'm just so used to it. It's like my brain's like, you're in a simulation, it knows, but I can't trick myself anymore. But I can do my best to try and trick other people.
Hello, welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is...
It's Kilerbomb, that's me.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. It's
Yeah.
very much appreciate
We
your
appreciate
time.
you here. Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
So, what is it you do here within the virtual world?
All sorts of stuff, I guess. I do avatars, I do worlds, and for both of those things, I do my own shaders and little systems. So I don't know. I guess in terms of VRChat stuff, I've dabbled in a lot of different areas that are here in the game.
Oh, how did you get started with all of that in VRChat then?
Well, I started playing back in 2017 when a lot of people started playing. I first booted up the game in October of 2017, but it was just in desktop, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to wait until I can afford a VR headset, and I came back in December of 2017, and it's been nothing but a void for my time since then, so...
Definitely understand that, but same once we started.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar stories.
So how'd you get involved with the world and avatar building and all of that? What inspired you to start?
Well, I guess I kind of always have wanted to do like game dev stuff, and I had dabbled in things like, I don't know if you knew this, but Blender, the 3D software, used to have a game engine, and I used to mess with that a long time ago. It's not a very good game engine, I'm going to be honest with you, but I messed with it. I didn't know that there were greener pastures such as Unity, because I was dumb and I was young, but I saw VRChat and I was like, oh, and this is in Unity, so I heard about Unity a little bit before that, and I was like, okay, well, this seems like fun, let's make stuff for it. And I kind of just learned stuff to do the things I wanted to do, and things kind of went from there, I guess.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Everyone's seen a lot of your worlds, and they're really impressive. Kudos to you. You're really good at what you do, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So where do you get some of the inspiration for your work then?
I don't know. I guess a lot of it's just kind of like games I've played, really, because I honestly didn't grow up with a lot of like TV or movies or anything. Most of what I had was just a few games, so I guess that was it. I mean, as a kid, I played a whole lot of like Smash Bros. I played a whole lot of like Kirby, a whole lot of like Sonic, like Sonic Adventure 2. Love that game. But yeah,
Wow.
I guess that's my primary kind of what I pulled from, in a way.
Okay. Well, that's actually pretty awesome that you've been able to pull sources from that. So what was some of the hardest things for you to pick up for Unity and Blender and all of that in your adventure?
I'd say probably one of the hardest parts is just anytime you're learning new software, it's difficult because there's all sorts of new things, and especially when I first started playing, once we got past Unity 5.6, we were just blowing through Unity versions pretty quickly, and things would majorly change pretty often. So I guess that was like a challenge. But thankfully, I had already dealt with Blender quite a bit, so I was familiar enough with that for that to not be too much of a struggle for me, thankfully.
Okay. So what have What have been some of the things that you like about Unity and the different changes VRChat's made over the years?
One thing I like about Unity is I feel like it's pretty easy to understand like all the basic concepts in it. They make that pretty simple, honestly. Like it wasn't that bad for me to just pick up and kind of understand like how things work at a basic level. I mean, when you start to get into the weeds, it gets a little iffy, but at a base level, it's I'd say it's mostly pretty intuitive. And with VRChat, I mean, man, one of the things people wanted to do forever ago is touch everyone's dynamic bones and stuff, and I think that was probably one of the biggest things I ever did was avatar dynamics.
Okay.
Everybody loves that.
So are you a fan of the Fizzbone system they have now?
Oh yeah, I thought it was great because whenever they were first talking about it, I was like, I wonder if this is going to be like better than dynamic bone, or if it's going to be kind of worse and slowly get better, or have at least feature parity. But I was pleasantly surprised when it came out. It was just like way better than dynamic bone, and I just like immediately didn't care about dynamic bone. I was like, man, this is so much better than it. So many more options.
Indeed. Well, with a lot of the changes VRChat's made with like Fizzbones, I've only played around it blindly and watching people, but they're adding a whole bunch of cool things like squish bones, and the fact that they're now adding a lot of that stuff native too is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're like always looking for more little features to add, which I think is cool.
Are you serious? They're adding squish bones?
They've already added that. It's
They
been
are.
a feature.
Fuck, now I'm gonna not have to worry about being sat on. I'm just gonna worry about being rolled underneath the tire and thrown out in the highway. Jesus Christ, I get used to one thing and they come undone, man.
Just wait till
Yeah.
just wait till Snuff it gets the bug in her ear.
No.
You can just make you flat.
Stop it! No! No! And people
about
be
to get,
picking
like,
me up
Tom
with a
and Jerry.
spatula and use me as a wow, it's a raptor frisbee. Whee! Yeah, that's gonna be fucking great. That's all I need. Be tossed around already. Yeah, great. Oh, boy. Mm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've added squish bones, and I wonder what other fun stuff they're gonna add too, because they're always looking to be pulling from like the modding scene as well, like even down to the personal mirror they've added. It's great. Cool.
Yeah, all the little changes that have happened, especially in the past 2.5 years. I mean, they've really been like ramping up the rate at which they add new changes. Because back when I first started playing, I mean, there wouldn't be like a major change for like 2 years, and it would be just like one thing. And now it's just like it feels like they sneak up on me because they happen so often. I just get used to the new one, and then there's a new thing, which is honestly a great problem to have.
I do agree. It is a good problem to have.
Wealth of options.
Yeah. What were things like back then? Because I've not gonna lie, I started around COVID, so I don't know what things were like back before, pre-COVID days.
It was a lot different world. Like for one, whenever I mean, you had when you first spawned into the game, like there weren't homeworlds or anything, so you just spawned into a public instance of the hub, whichever hub that was, because they had like an old hub and then the old hub. Like there's two different ones, but yeah. So immediately when you spawn in, you're just looking at a bunch of other people. It puts you in a populated public instance. So that was like, it was a lot more Wild Westy back then, kind of like very, very crazy. You didn't know what you're gonna see. I mean, it's still that way, honestly. If you go to Publix, it's pretty similar, but you still have tidbits of that left over, but it's not quite like it was in 2017.
What was working in Unity like back at that time?
I'd say it's similar because a lot of the things didn't change in a major way, at least for the user-facing side of it. But one thing that has gotten a lot better is the editor. Like Unity editor, they've had a lot of little changes that have just kind of added up to make the experience a lot nicer to work with. I had all sorts of little grievances, and honestly, as time went by and we upgraded Unity version after Unity version, most of them went away. Like there's very few major issues I have with it these days.
Well, that's good to hear that it's changed that much. So You said it's user friendly. What do you mean by that?
I guess that like everything that's like if you're maybe it's just my position coming from like one 3D software to another kind of 3D software you could put it, but things made sense to me and I like the whole game object system. Like it makes sense. Everything's a little object and you have things on that object. I don't know. For me, it clicked pretty easily and I feel like it's a kind of nice way to do things. I mean, if you're kind of like the programmer type, you can get in a debate whether, you know, what kind of way to set it up is better. But I think in terms of a usability standpoint, it's pretty good.
Okay. So also in that same vein, how did you get started with making your own shaders?
Well, it kind of just started where I saw some cool effect that somebody did, and I was like, man, I don't even know how you do that. So whenever I wanted to do something like that myself, I kind of just to do that, and I kind of just went down a path of doing that. And well, a lot of the motivation too was like trying to recreate like effects from some video game or whatever, and I was like, well, how did they do that? They can't do it this way, and it turns out it was with shaders. So I ended up having to learn a bunch about shaders, and there's still a lot I don't know, but the world of shaders is it's a very deep topic.
Indeed. What was some of the first things you've built with shaders and Unity?
I think the very first shader I made was just super simple. All it did was it just scroll the texture back and forth. That's it. I think that was my first thing I did, and I was happy that I did that. I was super happy about that at the time.
Wow.
Sounds like you made a treadmill for everybody to exercise on.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Fair warning, we may kind of speak up, and it's not because we're trying to be rude. We just get very excited. So I do apologize if any of that happens.
You're cool. Oh, you're fine.
Stop
It's
it!
just a conversation.
I'm telling Mom if you're going to be like that.
What did I do? I haven't done anything yet.
Oh, she's going to use
There's the word. Yet. Oh, yeah, the middle name full last and
yeah.
where's the stick?
The middle name
This
comes out, you
man
know you're
knows
in trouble.
Yeah, you're in trouble. You're in deep shit. Time to put the brakes on, get the suitcase packed, and get the frick out of the way, because your ass is a deep shit. No matter what. And you thought your dad was bad. Yeek. Yeah, we won't go down that road. Okay, back to you. God, that's bad memories. God, help me.
Well, luckily enough, most of us didn't live in the same time frame you did, so the whole getting the middle name called wasn't pull out the wooden spoon and beat your ass till you can no longer sit anymore.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't wait until your father gets home. Then you sweated the whole freaking time and everything else like this, then got your ass beat. Yeah, that's the sweat you know. Wait until your father gets home. Your ass is in deep crap. And then when you see my situation, not to get off the subject, is when your mom actually sweared, you backed up the brakes and you go, well, it's done.
Oh, yeah.
I am dead. I am freaking dead.
For sure.
I may feel lucky, but my mom never swore in that vein. Only time I got her to swear is when she kind of hurt herself, and because we were swearing all the time, it rubbed off on her. So us kids kind of got very excited at the time. Look, Mom swore for the first time, and we're 14, 15 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then she goes, see this gray hair that you added right now? I'm gonna have to deal with a lot more before it's over with. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, back to you. Apologize for that little tangent. Did you ever expect your worlds to be as popular as they are?
Oh man, not at all. To be honest with you, like I was kind of just doing it because it was fun and it was something that like I kind of wanted to challenge myself and do. I was like, usually every project I do at this point, I don't know if this is a good way to go about it, to be honest, but I try to tread territory that I haven't tread before. it's some part of it, so like I'm learning something new. So a lot of it was that, just kind of like learning experiences for me. So it was definitely, especially audioOrbs. I didn't at all expect that one to go as crazy as it did. That one was a huge thing for me. I didn't realize it would get so popular. But here we are, I guess.
What inspired the creation of audioOrbs?
It was actually, it started as something very different. It was just some kind of test of a weird lighting system I had thought about. And then my friend, me and my friends were just toying around with stuff in the world. At that point, there was nothing similar to audioOrbs other than there are just these balls of light that you could grab and throw around or whatever. And someone's like, what if you put like audio link on this? And I was like, that sounds like kind of a cool idea. So I did that, and I realized, hey, this looks kind of cool. And I kind of just kept doing stuff with it for about a month, and then I published it, and then, and now we're here.
I've seen you've done a lot of updates to audioOrbs, like not the current, like I've spent a lot of time away from audioOrbs, and I came back the last iteration when the floor would go up and down, and I was just absolutely amazed at the work you did. I was fascinated with it. I spent like hours there just looking at the floor go up and down.
Well, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, there was a lot of work put into that update, and well, most of the updates. I basically saw that it was pretty popular, and then I ended up getting into the spotlight section, the PC spotlight, and I was like, well, now that I'm there, I kind of want to make sure that I continue to update and improve things since it's there. And if they're choosing to put it in the spotlight, I'm gonna take that somewhat seriously and try to continually update it to the best of my ability. And I feel like it's in a pretty good spot right now, where all the updates have kind of come together to have a almost complete package. I feel like there's a few things I could still do, but it's in a good state right now, I think.
Was there any challenges while working, updating, or building that world?
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of challenges. The way it works is very non-conventional, so it was kind of hard setting up systems that wouldn't break like crazy, because the way the lighting works there is very different, and to facilitate having 32 sources of light at once without lagging people too bad. So that was kind of interesting to try to solve that. That works. I have a specific workflow I have to do to continue to make that work, but it has, it's been fine. I've been able to keep up with it. And there was the themes update, which was the most recent one. That one I basically set out to, was like, okay, I need to make something that is simple for me to add on to later, so I could do future updates without too much hassle. And that's kind of why I added the themes. So if I go back to it, I can add a few themes and be like, all right, here's an update, and fix a few bugs, add a few themes, and instead of having to create a whole new feature, I can just add a few more themes. So that was that feature, and it's worked out pretty well that way.
Oh wow. So how did you figure out how to get multiple light sources in your new system for lighting to work? You don't have to give details if you don't want to.
Oh no, I don't mind at all. Like, some people think I keep it under wraps or something, but the reality is, it's like, if you ask me, I'll definitely tell you. I have no problem with it. It's not a secret. I just kind of had gotten to a certain point with shader stuff where I had a few ideas of how to do things, and I was like, well, what if I basically store all the light data in one texture, one render texture, 32 positions, 32 colors, and I also store velocities in there, so that, because when the orbs stretch and stuff, that's how I keep track of that. And yeah, I basically, in all my shaders in the world, I just loop through the texture, each light and each point, and just shade it as if it were a light. And it's honestly pretty simple how it works. Like, in concept, I mean, in application, there's a little bit you have to do, but it's not so bad, really. It's just kind of a lot of simple things put together.
How did you come up with that system? Because it sounds like it'd be a difficult thing to implement at first. At least from my standpoint. I've only got 3 brain cells though.
It's all right. You know, sometimes I operate with more than one. It's rare though. But it's kind of like a deferred rendering system where instead of like what VRChat uses is a forward rendering system where every object that's touched by a real-time light will be the complete mesh will be re-rendered, additively blended back onto the scene. So deferred is where you basically have just a full screen, like you just have a texture of everything has been rendered with all the lights, and then you just apply that. I couldn't quite do that, but I figured, well, maybe I can do some kind of like almost deferred kind of bastardization of it, and that was kind of what it was based off of, and it kind of works. It's not perfect, but I feel like it's a good middle ground, and it works well enough for VRChat and what I needed to do.
To be fair, I think it works amazingly, at least from a player standpoint, because what you do, what most Unity builders do, to me looks like techno wizardry.
Well, I'm glad it looks like it works well. I'm glad there's not too many visible cracks in the system.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, what audioOrbs is and all the worlds you build is phenomenal work. I very much appreciate all of them. As most VRChat players have done, a lot of people spend a lot of time there, and it's quite the accomplishment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been blown away how much people have liked it. Like I didn't expect it at all, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me that people enjoy it.
Indeed. Well, most musical things like that in VRChat work quite well with each other, even if it's like particle systems or audioOrbs or those audio link tunnel systems. They always seem to be a really good point for VR. It's always super fascinating to be in worlds like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was a lot of kind of like audio visualizer stuff already, and just things to do with music. Like I think it's a pretty natural fit for VR. It just makes sense because it's, we don't have like in VR we don't have you can't grab onto stuff and really feel it, but music is the one thing you can properly convey that sense. So it makes sense that people have been leaning into it. At least that's my perspective on it.
Indeed. VR kind of gives you a more immersive feel to looking at those old school visualizers where you see the little logo bounce up and down and stuff, or whatever they may choose at the time in VR, especially worlds like audioOrbs. It's super fascinating to sit and look at for an extended period of time.
Yeah, honestly, even though it's my own world, every now and again I just kind of monkey brain stare at colors, It scratches a bit of an itch sometimes. I don't know.
Indeed. Well, it scratched a lot of people's itch from how as many people enjoy it as they do. Indeed.
Yeah, it seems like it. I'm happy that people have continued to enjoy it. I've been surprised that it hasn't fallen off and plateaued. It's really just kind of continued on a pretty steady, like almost like just linear amount of people who visit it and favorite it and stuff, and I didn't expect that.
Well, it's a testament to your work, to be quite honest, and the fact that you keep it updated and you take it seriously, and it's very visible in your work, at least from my side anyway.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I try to make everything like anything that's going to be user facing in the world, I try to make it pretty polished as much as I can anyway. I know at this point there's a lot of options on that main menu, so for someone who's coming there for the first time, it might be a bit overwhelming if I'm honest, but I also like to have lots of stuff for people to tinker with because I know that's fun to do.
It's a lot like being in most people's favorite games like RPGs. I use an example of when you first hop into those things and you see, look at all the skills and the items, I have to craft what? At first it's daunting, but once you kind of sit in and actually start playing with it, it becomes a lot more worth it. Just building whatever it is you wish at the time becomes more of a game than the game itself. And audioOrbs, all the options you have is no different.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar there, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I added the whole thing where you can copy and save your settings, because I figured it's like, well, you can tweak all these things, but if you could actually save it and then reload it and then share it with other people, that makes it a lot more useful and a lot more personal, and people can actually like enjoy it, and it's been actually for me even just like people, my friends have gone to my world and they're like, oh dude, you should check out this song on your world, and like I'd never heard this song before and it ended up being a song I really liked, so I've kind of been exposed to more music just through my world that I didn't really expect that either, to be honest.
Well, it is a music-based world, so having those things shared with you, at least for what I see, is kind of should be sort of expected anyway. At least I'm not.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it, to be honest. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna put this out there and here it is, because I have a lot of people who think I'm like some huge like music guy. I mean, I love music like anyone else, but I'm not like some kind of DJ or anything like that. I just kind of had this idea, and music was a part of it. So yeah, I think sometimes people think that I'm like in the VRChat music scene, and I was like, no, not really. I just kind of made this thing, and I'm happy that people use it, and it's cool to hear the songs that people put on it, because there's a lot of stuff shared with me that I hadn't heard before.
So, in your entire adventures through all the worlds and avatars you've built, what have been some of your favorite things to learn?
That's a good question. My favorite things to learn. Okay, well here's one. One thing I really like doing is things related to like user experience related things. So like audio, like kind of like audio design and like UI kind of stuff. I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff, and it probably shows in audioOrbs. Like I spend a lot of time on the menu making it like feel nice to press the little buttons and stuff, because I feel like that's pretty important. And I kind of took inspiration from a lot of those old games I played, because I feel like there's something that's kind of lost with newer games. Newer games have these menus that, I mean, they get the job done, but you go back to like the PS2 and like the GameCube, or like even N64, PS1 era, and you had these like really cool like menus that were themed exactly around the game. They all had their like own little sound effects and stuff. I don't know. I kind of wanted to capture a little bit of that, even though mine's still a bit more utilitarian, I guess.
You mentioning all that just blasted me back into my childhood playing Turok on N64 or Legend of Zelda on GameCube.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, I guess I kind of missed the old menus that had like character to them, so like I kind of wanted to bring that into VRChat to the best that I could.
So what are some of the games that you've pulled inspiration from specifically then? Like menu systems and stuff?
Honestly, a lot of it's been probably Nintendo-oriented stuff, because they always have interesting little menus. For one, I really like their menus. Like they started doing this in Smash Bros. Brawl, where they had like the cool menus, and then every game would have their own like really specific menu tailored to them. I really liked that, and I don't know if you've played this game. Not a lot of people have, but Kirby Air Ride back on the GameCube had a really cool menu, and I really liked the menus in that game. So that was one of my inspirations as well. I don't know, it's a really cool thing to navigate.
I can't say that I've ever played Kirby Air Ride. Most of my GameCube games was like Resident Evil, Legend of Zelda, and a Fire Emblem as well.
Oh yeah, I had a friend really into Fire Emblem.
I have to say, most games nowadays don't feel like how they used to. A lot of them feel very buy things driven, like EA and what they do. Spend your money. Now it's not like you can just buy a game, play it all the way through, and you get unlockables which make you want to play it more. Now it's spend your money.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like that. It's like it's not the same thing, especially when you go home and, well, used to you got the game and you went home and you could play the whole thing and there you go. And now it's like, oh well, now there's like 5 DLCs that the game's like not really complete without, or whatever. Maybe not quite to that extent, but yeah, it definitely feels more cash grabby these days and more driven by profits than passion, I guess.
Although there was one game came out recently that wasn't like that, and I was like, perhaps, have you ever played Baldur's Gate?
I have a friend who was playing that a lot and streaming it to me, and that game looked crazy. Like just the amount of stuff that it's got in it, I was blown away at how much work that must have went into that. That's crazy.
I finished it, and it's been one of my favorite games that came out. For like, one, you get what you buy, and the amount of story they put into that, especially with options, is just beyond phenomenal. Like that, just I'm sure whoever written their game worked really hard at writing those things. It must have been monotonous, but it was, from a player side, it's worth it. I would suggest playing it if you ever have time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was kind of one of the things that, like, it looked really cool, but I was like, man, I don't know if I have the time to invest into a game like this. It looks like it's gonna require a lot of my time, which I just don't have right now. But I've watched friends play it, and I was always just blown away at how many options there were and how well things were put together. And I was like, man, this definitely it's a labor of love thing, and not just they want profits.
So I have a fun question for you. Since you started learning to use Unity and Blender, do you look at video games the same or differently now?
Definitely different, that's for sure. I mean, I knew a little bit about the tricks that they used back whenever I was using the Blender game engine years and years ago, but definitely after going into Unity, yeah, I definitely don't look at games the same anymore. I can still have fun with them and whatnot, but I'm always thinking about the little technical aspects when I play them. It's something I can't not do now.
What are some things you enjoy from that playing games? I ask.
Honestly, a lot of it, what I enjoy is like there will be certain, from the shader side of things, you'll see some shader effect that looks really cool, and then you can kind of, either they do, some companies, they'll do like a GDC talk about, and then that will show up there and be like, oh, that's how they did that. That's really cool. Or like, it'll be just opaque or just transparent enough that I can kind of pick apart what they did. I'm like, oh shit, that's a really good idea, and I'll kind of incorporate that into whatever project I do in the future, because there's a lot of ideas to be taken from these things, a lot of inspiration.
Indeed. What have been some of the more recent things you've incorporated through that process, may I ask?
Let me think about that. That one's going to be kind of difficult. That's the more recent thing. Oh, okay. So one thing that it's like, I guess it's not super duper recent, and I don't have anything like actually uploaded with it, but there's a technique called shadow volumes that's not used anymore. It's kind of an older technique, but I had ended up finding it. There wasn't a whole lot of info on it, but I don't know, it caught my eye because you can make these shadows, because you know how normally, like in Vrchat and whatever, if you have like if you cast a shadow, it's going to be kind of, you can see the pixels and stuff, and it's a little blocky or whatever, or blurry. Shadow volumes is basically just an infinite resolution shadow. It's like, and you can zoom in as far as you want. It's very old technique. There's some limitations, but I want to use it in some project at some point, because it'll give a very unique look these days, because no one uses it anymore. So that was probably, I've done test projects with it, and I thought it turned out, it looked kind of cool. So maybe at some point I'll have something to show in VRChat for it. I don't know.
May I ask how shadow volumes works?
Basically, it uses are you aware of at least kind of the basics of like the stencil shaders and stuff? How you can
sure.
A lot of people use it to put a
In other words, he fucking doesn't know. He's completely fucking bumfounded like I am. He screwed the pooch, okay? Yeah, explain.
It uses I don't know, it uses stencil buffer magic you basically stretch your mesh out in the opposite direction of the light, and you find the spots where it intersects with other geometry. So you have this shadow that is, perfect to your whatever mesh you're using, and it is like, because it's just the mesh, really. You can zoom in as far as you want and you still have like a perfectly sharp silhouette for it. It's not perfect, and it's like there's some caveats. You have to set up your stuff in a certain way for it. But I think if done right, it can look really nice in the modern day. I just haven't seen many people attempt it.
When was the last time you saw it used then?
The last big game I know that used it was Doom 3. And they made a big deal of it in that game. In Doom 3, they had like all these crazy shadows and stuff, and they used shadow volumes, and they at the time they were like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing, and then it wasn't.
I still enjoyed Doom 3, especially the Doom 3 BFG edition and every other version of that. I spent so much time playing that game.
Oh yeah, it was definitely different than the other ones. It was like a lot more actually spooky. It wasn't just like, oh well, you're on hell or whatever, Mars or hell or whatever, and it looks there's these monsters, there's like in these dark tunnels and stuff. It's pretty cool.
They did a really good job keeping up with the atmosphere of where you were in that game. And I will give them that, is they do a really good job with atmosphere, especially with their soundtracks as well. Like even the more recent game with the Metal Choir, with the newer Doom game they came out with.
Oh yeah, for sure. They, especially recently, they've done really well with their atmosphere and making sure everything like looks and sounds like it fits together. They're putting in the work, and you can tell.
Indeed. Have you ever used any atmosphere techniques in your worlds to set a certain thing, and what kind of thing were you trying to portray?
Oh yeah, for sure. So like, I guess I have a lot of worlds that are not public that just stopped working on. But anyway, one that I could, I guess, audioOrbs. I'll talk about that one. That one's public. For each theme, if you don't have music playing, every single theme like has its own like unique ambience that plays during that theme, and some of them will have like extra little sounds and stuff, and each one has its own set of footstep sounds and stuff like that. I think that really helps to feel like you're there, even though like for me it's like I'm so used to playing VR that I can never really get super lost anymore in VR because I'm just so used to it. It's like my brain's like, you're in a simulation, it knows, but I can't trick myself anymore. But you know, I can do my best to try and trick other people.
Yeah. You know, that's the funny thing about VR is you can vary. If once you know, but also the exact same point for a lot of new people, it's got to be one of those easiest things to forget where you are. Like, or else those videos of people punching their TVs or throwing their controllers through the window, those things wouldn't exist. Or watching people walk into their closets. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's the funniest thing in the world. If you're like talking to someone who's like getting rowdy or something, you just see them like punch something, you just hear a crash, and you're like, oh shit, he just hit his freaking desk or something. That's a pretty classic VR chat moment right there. Oh yeah.
I never did that.
Yeah, he destroyed
Never.
what? You just no, not
Never
at all.
did it, huh?
You just,
Never did it.
I grenaded one of his fucking controllers and had to buy new ones. No, never at all. Son of a bitch.
Well,
Those are some of the funniest VR moments right there.
Well, the moment which he's referring to, we were playing the forest, and there was one of the cannibals was running up to my right. I was holding a spear. I think I was trying to fish or something. And as the cannibal were up to me, I panicked, and I'm sitting on my bed a lot like I am now. I pulled the spear back and I thrusted it into the cannibal, killing it, but also eviscerated my controller on my nightstand at the exact same time. Good news is I survived. Bad news is my controllers didn't at all. The controller that hit it was just in pieces. The top part of the buds was hanging off. It was a nightmare.
Oh man, yeah, that sounds like a mess.
I think the best situations I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong. I've bumped my head on my desk reaching down to pick something off the floor. You know, that's just common. But the biggest one is when somebody sits down. Right, you know, they're standing up, they're in full body and everything else, and they sit down and they miss what they're supposed to plant their
Yes.
ass on. That is,
Yes.
oh God, my butt! Oh, it hurts! Oh wow, I don't have enough padding there. Oh shit! And we're all looking at the person going, "What the hell did you just do?" I missed my sit chair or my bed, and I fell on the floor. And you look at him going, well, at least you didn't fall forward and crash your brain and shove your headset into your brain. Well, that would have been a
That's
better
true.
thing. At least it's padded. It's just, some of the stuff you see in here, the people do, and everything else like this, and I can imagine you've seen it too. You just scratch your head going, don't you know your environment? You've been in this room for how long and you still don't know your shit? Oh, I'm in here all the time. I'm in my bedroom all day playing VR and everything else. And guess what you do? You missed your bed by a mile. No, just a few inches. That few inches just become a freaking mile. And everybody's laughing their asses off. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I
Indeed.
get a kick
It's
out
really
of it.
funny.
Wait a minute. What other worlds have you created, Bomber, besides the Orb world? What's the other ones that you've designed?
So the other two that are public, the first one I did was a long time ago. It was my first public world. It's called Night Sky. It's this, you've got like a lake and just this open area with like a log cabin, and it's like iced over. I don't know, that one was, I mean, that one was more popular than I thought it would be at the time. I guess a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't actually know this at first until a friend told me at the time, but I know they'll eventually change the Steam trailer, but right now, the early version of that world is actually in the Steam trailer for VRChat.
Really?
So,
That's actually really
yeah.
cool.
Oh,
I-
wow.
It
Cool.
used to not be snowy in that world. I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this a seasonal world where I switch it over every season, and I didn't do that. It was winter and it stayed that way.
So,
It
what was
started in summer and then it went to winter, and I just
gave up?
never changed.
Ice Age! The Ice Age is here! We're not gonna leave this shit! We're gonna freeze our nards! Hey, we got a cabin with a fire and it shut up. We're okay. Well,
Exactly.
So what's another one that you've created? And so forth.
The other one that's public would be my Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Outset Island world. It's the starting island in Wind Waker.
I've been there.
I spent
We've been
I
there.
spent a
I've been
lot
that
of
one.
time on that one. Yeah,
Yeah, I've been there.
I'm gonna be honest, I've been
that
there.
one was fun to put together.
That world, when I first visited, it was actually the first Legend of Zelda world I went to, and it put me right back when I was a kid playing
man.
Wind Waker on an 8-inch screen on a GameCube. And thank you for
Yeah,
that, by the way.
Oh, no problem. I had a lot of fun making it. I mean, it was a lot of effort too, because that's not even like SDK 3. That's all SDK 2 stuff. So that's it was quite a challenge pulling it off, but I had a lot of fun with the shader stuff. I just kind of picked apart what they were doing, and that game is carried very hard by their shader work.
Really?
Basically everything in the game is like they do something special with some shader effect. There's a lot of that in that game, and I had a lot of fun picking it apart and recreating it.
Oh, so
Learned a lot too.
what kinds of things did you learn by recreating that world?
Well, for one, their approach, like this is it's almost, they take a lot of kind of old school approaches to, at the time, modern rendering. So one thing they did is every time of day and like every like weather pattern that could happen, they have like a global palette color that everything would get applied to certain sets of objects and everything, instead of just having like, if you're used to dealing with Unity, you just have like, your light and you change the color of that light and everything just, gets multiplied by that color. But they had individual like artist authored palette colors for every single, like for a bunch of different times of day and different states. And I thought that was really cool. And I ended up doing the same thing in my world to get as close to the source material as possible. And it makes me want to do something like that again in the future, because I think it's really cool to just have something so specifically tailored to, the artist's vision.
Okay. How long did it take you to recreate that world?
Oh man. That took, I mean, it was on and off because I kind of kept burning myself out on it because I'm pretty bad about that. I'll just like go into something real hard and then just be totally dead for a while because I burned myself out on it. I, it's a bad habit to get in, work habit to get into with that stuff, but that's what I did. But because of that, it took me about a year and a half to do it all. Honest, that's about how long it took. It took a long time, and I probably shouldn't have spent quite so much time on it, but you know, I did learn a lot, so that's good.
Well, it looks really, really good and very, very identical to the game. I will tell you, you did a really good job of recreating that.
Well, thank you. That was the goal, to be as close as I could to the original, while also taking a few small liberties to make it nicer to look at in VR, like very small things, like using a HD texture pack that somebody made, which makes it look so much nicer. It's like as your brain remembers it looking as a kid.
So, was it? How many things would? Sorry, words English. I can English.
I can barely English.
Yeah, boy. Oh my God. Do you need a drink of water, young man, so you can get your water out and spit it all over the place?
No, I think I'm good. I think I got my thought
Okay.
out. Was it difficult to get visible in VR, like from a 2D format, like it was for the TV, into VR?
Oh yeah, there's definitely some things that are a lot more troublesome in VR. Like in Wind Waker, for example, probably the go-to thing that is different between my system and my kind of systems and theirs is that for them, like the sky and the stars are actually like a foot away from the camera.
Really?
That you view the game through. Like it's just right there. I mean, in VR though, that can't work because you have depth perception, so you have to actually push it out very far. So, and there's a lot of old games that do that kind of trick where they just stick it right by the camera and then just tell it to render behind everything.
Oh.
Can't really do that in VR. You can't get away with that because it's super easy to tell depth.
I actually didn't know they did that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know if you like emulate games at all, but if you have like Dolphin, the GameCube emulator, and you ever looking in Wind Waker, they have a little free cam thing you can enable, like Dolphin does, and you can just look around, and that's like one of the first things you'll see because you pull the camera back and you see where the camera used to be. There's just this sphere around it and a bunch of little dots. You're like, what is that? It's like, oh, that's the sky.
Does Wind Waker emulate well? May I ask?
Yes.
Oh.
It's probably one of the better emulating games because, as far as I'm aware, Dolphin kind of like the Dolphin team for the emulator, they kind of used it as like the standard for how their performance was doing and whatnot, from what I understand. So like it's probably one of the best running games on the emulator. There's basically no problems at all. Everything is about as perfect as it can be for an emulator.
Oh wow, I'm actually impressed that Wind Waker is emulated at all. I kind of figured Nintendo would be very angry that exists.
Yeah, they don't like it, but it's there, and Dolphin's like the most mature emulator software like on the planet. So they definitely don't like that. I can tell you that much.
You know, kind of makes me think.
I gotta.
What you first? I'll spew my thought after.
Oh, I was gonna ask a completely different question. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wonder how Nintendo
Go.
feels about the Legend of Zelda worlds that are here in VR chat, because there's a lot of them.
Oh man. Oh god. I hope they never feel any way about it because that would mean they saw them, and if they saw them, they would definitely not like it. I was like, if they ever come to VR chat and see all this stuff and like decide to go after it, I'm gonna be on the chopping block. So I just hope that doesn't happen.
You get a fair point. Like, I'll see people like you recreate Outset Island, or that other team who's recreating Majora's Mask, and you're gonna see all the work they put into it. And if they get big angry and want to axe it, I can see all the time you guys put into it just evaporated. And also, it's one less cool Nintendo thing to see in VR.
Yeah, for sure. And like to be honest, like it's only more like good exposure for them. And like these are old games at this point, like Majora's Mask, Wind Waker. Like I don't like to admit it, but Wind Waker's kind of old at this point. You know, it came out in 2001, and it doesn't feel like it. It feels like, oh, it only came out like 10 years ago. It's like, no, that's over 20 years ago.
Yeah, I feel old.
Yeah. All my favorite games are like older than a lot of people in this game.
We ain't going there. Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I was waiting to hear from you.
So, boy, the question I have for you is when you did the orbital world and everything else like this, you had it at one time where you were walking in snow. And then if you lay down or moved and everything else, how'd you get that idea for that part? And the other one is the tracks that you have where you can jump off of them and stuff like this. Where did you get the general idea for that? Because you get more of a field, like most people, you have to, in some of the places, you have to go way up in the middle of everything to see what's going on. You had it where you could actually circle around it. Where did you come up with that type of idea?
So for the snow thing, that kind of loops all the way back to that first world of mine, the night sky world. Whenever I put it in winter mode and just never did anything else with it, I always wanted to make it so it was possible to like deform the snow with your feet and stuff, but at the time I didn't really know how to approach it. And the old SDK also wasn't like, it was kind of limiting for stuff like that. So I mean, you could do it on a basic level, but doing it for a large scale was kind of hard. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna tackle that again, and I had a lot of fun making that system. And for the Rails, that was, so the package I used for the audio integration stuff, Audio Link, which is, you know, the back end of basically the whole world, that whole audioOrbs world. I went to their demo world. They had just put out a new demo world for their new version of Audio Link, and they had this rail grinding system there, and that's made by I think, what is it, Squidding Me, and it's called the Udon Airtime Prefab. And I was like, you know, that would be pretty cool to have in my world as well. So I went ahead and grabbed it and tried a few things out, and I was like, all right, we're gonna add boosters and stuff too, because I think that sounds cool. And other people seem to like it as well, so I guess it was a good idea.
It was a damn good idea. I get a kick out of just sliding around listening to music and seeing what's going on. It's great. Now the snow situation, I have no problem with it, but it's usually I can't see nothing past here anyhow, so it's no big deal.
Yeah. It discriminates a little bit if your avatar's small, I guess.
Small, yeah. You feel like, wow, I'm making a pattern back here, but problem is I can't see myself now. Well, if I fall backwards, I leave out and do I'm going to do snow angels. Yeah, what snow angel? I am the angel now. I'm buried in the shit. Yeah, it's great.
Well,
but it was cool. I got a kick out of it.
To be fair, Raptor, your size, when you do snow angels, it kind of looks like a little handprint. It's dead.
Thank you. I love you too, big boy. You're my hero. I'll take you to mom. Oh boy, just love you to death. Yeah. Oh yeah.
What are friends for?
It's okay, folks. Ends 4. There it is. I knew it was coming. The other, God. Now I forgot what my other question was. You ass. Thanks. Appreciate it. See? Oh, go dumbfounded. When you're doing the orbs and stuff like you were talking about earlier and everything else like this, what gave you the idea to where when you got your own music that's in the system, and then you have where you can actually download your own? What gave you the idea to have a little box that you can carry? I think that's in there now, isn't it? That you can carry around and move it around, and you can actually adjust the orbs, because I remember before it wasn't there. You only had the orbs bouncing against the tours of the music. What brought you to bring that field into it?
So I was just thinking of something like cool that I could add to the world that like fit with everything, and it wasn't something like any other feature I had at the time, and I was like, well, what would be kind of cool? It's like some kind of user interactive thing that you could actually have some kind of input on. So I was like, okay, what about this thing that you could actually pick up and drag the orbs around and stuff? And I was like, well, it's kind of like this weird energy thing, kind of looking thing. You know, that the orbs are. It's like, who knows what they actually are? They're just some weird concept. So I was like, maybe electricity kind of goes with that pretty well. So I was like, well, cool, I can do this electric effect that I've always wanted to try and make a system for. And that's kind of part of the inspiration behind a lot of the things I do. It's like there'll be some system that I've not like attempted to make before. They're like, oh, I want to try to do that, see if I can do it. And that's kind of where that came from, really.
Okay. Now, what are you adding anything in the future to the orb setup or anything like that? Do you have something like that you're working on? You don't have to tell us what it is because it's great not to know. But are you working on something new to add to it at all?
Right now, I don't have any super huge ideas for like next features other than trying to put in some quality of life features that a lot of people have been asking for, like a queue system for putting in songs so everybody can go one after the other orderly instead of just, putting in the URL and be like, oh man, my song wasn't done yet or whatever. And a few things like that. I'd like to put more rails around too, like more paths and more stuff to do with that. And I did toy with the idea of having some kind of like little mini game you could activate on the rails that you could have like a speedometer and like score and stuff. I tried a little bit. I might do that still because I think it would be kind of fun, but we'll see. I've got a few ideas.
Okay. Cool. You mentioned earlier there were some worlds that you're not going to publish due to they're not working. Could we learn about some of those?
Oh yeah. So I have, one world that I was messing with a long time ago is this like cloud shrine thing that's just like this island floating in the sky, and I actually made that back in like early 2019. I never ended up publishing it because I had a problem that I couldn't sort out and I just didn't know how to at the time. I'm actually coming back to that world now and just kind of redoing everything from scratch. I did post a little bit about it on my Twitter recently because it's gotten to a point where I've got enough momentum with it that I can see it through. I try not to talk or put out there publicly too much about worlds that I don't know if I have the momentum with to follow through on, because I don't want people to get like excited for something that might not end up happening. But that one for sure is gonna get done. But it's like this island that's floating above the ocean with like mountains in the background and stuff, and I think it's gonna be kind of cool when it's done. I've been making a lot of like specific systems for it and stuff. It's been fun to make.
What inspired that world?
That one? Honestly, a big inspiration for it at the time and now was the fact that, well, specifically back in 2019, that was when these like kind of, comfy worlds that are like small rooms and everything were becoming very popular, and it's kind of getting to the point where I was like, man, I don't really see any like outdoor worlds or anything that's kind of like a little different. And I was like, maybe I can try something like this where it's like, it's kind of the almost antithesis of this. It's you're outside and you're up in the sky and it's bright, but so, and that's almost, I kind of have, there's some of that motivation still from that with this new version, because I like to do stuff that's a little bit different. Maybe not like opposite of what other people are doing, but I try not to be completely, I try not to be quite the same as what other people are doing.
Well, there's nothing wrong with going against the grain. A lot of the time, being yourself is more important than being like everyone else. It's much better as a person to be yourself unapologetically, whether it's in your work or you as a personality, because when you change for other people, honestly, the only person you hurt is yourself in the end.
That's true, yeah. It is nice just kind of making the things that I actually want to make, instead of just, I mean, it's cool that there are all these like little comfy worlds that you can hang out in and stuff, and I like hanging out in those every now and again, but for me, I miss, it's almost like how VRChat used to be when people were uploading maps. They'd be like a lot of people wanted these kind of expansive areas and stuff, and you don't see a ton of that anymore. So I was kind of wanting to do something kind of like that.
What do you mean by expansive, may I ask?
So I guess just like areas that there's a lot of places to walk around and a lot of little nooks and crannies for you to go and explore and find stuff. I feel like, you know, I don't know, just a lot of worlds aren't quite that way anymore. It's just the style of things, the way things have been going, you know. People are more interested in smaller experiences these days, but I kind of like slightly bigger things that you can kind of go around and explore and find little things that, you know, maybe you weren't even supposed to find. I kind of like that. Like used to back in like those days, you could just jump up walls and stuff because the old locomotion system was all wacky, and people would do that all the time. You'd like jump up walls, and you could also, I'm sure you've been to an old world where you can like stop moving in the air, and you kind of like, it stops your downward momentum, so you can just like hover forward. But yeah, you used to be able to do that too. And that was one of my favorite things with people back in the day, is just to go to places in the world where you felt like you weren't supposed to be, and that's where everybody would hang out. So I like that kind of thing.
So what are some of your favorite worlds that you've been to, either back in the day or today?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I think a classic that a lot of people are gonna agree with me on is probably Treehouse in the Shade. That's a super cool world, like, and very classic. It's pretty old at this point. But yeah, there's nothing quite like that still. It's still kind of one of the kind. And I thought that world's really cool. And anytime I'm bringing someone in VR chat for the first time, or a friend is like asking me to kind of, you know, tag along when they're showing their friend for the first time, I always suggest it as like, we should go here. This place is really cool.
It is a really good first world to go to. The way they did it's really fun. Shader work too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep, very cool shader stuff.
Okay, so were there any worlds that you've come to that you've borrowed stuff from, like ideas from, throughout your VR chat experience?
That's a good question. Trying to think. There's been, I will say, for audioOrbs, one of the inspirations for having like all this like ambience and whatnot when the audio is not playing is I'm not sure if you're aware of Blue Cat. They make worlds like The Shore and like The Heart. Their worlds are very like atmospheric, and it's actually really cool. They make their own music for the world, and like so they have little chunks of the music that play at certain parts and whatnot. It's very well put together stuff, and that's kind of an inspiration for me for the audio side of things, because I really like the way they set up their audio in their worlds. It's very cool. Not a lot like it in VR chat.
Okay. Bleh. Words. Sorry, I will at many times have a bunch of thoughts, and then unfortunately, because there's lots of things going through the door at once, they all just drop.
This happens to me all the time. Don't worry about it.
I'm not saying nothing.
What do you mean
It's
you're not
safer
saying
that
nothing?
way.
Say it.
When he's worried about dropping it and trying to get through the door, it's usually the knob that catches him in the ass. Then he all of a sudden, oh wow, I figured out how to work this. Jeez. Oh man.
Yes, I could be a pain in
Sometimes
the ass.
that's how
I'm
it goes.
sorry.
No, I didn't say you were a pain in the ass. Just, I didn't say it that way. I didn't mean it that way. Never mind. Forget it. Never mind. Never frickin' mind. I just went the wrong corner of the world. Eek.
So, what was your first time in VR chat like?
Oh man, it was crazy. It was very like I said, things back then are very Wild West. So, and I obviously didn't know anybody yet. It was just me and in the default hub with a bunch of random people I'd never met before, and I was just going around as the default, or one of the default avatars. It's like the alien guy, and I was just going around just, I don't know, being stupid, and eventually found a crew to hang out with for a while. And as time went on, things started kind of evolving with the game, and it became more people were playing, especially because around then a lot of streamers were really getting onto the game, and you would see the player counts, they just go up and up and up, in those early days. And as time went on, I kind of found a group that I mesh with pretty well, and most of them don't play anymore, but there's a few of my longtime friends from there that I still talk with. So
So throughout your time, what has been the most VR chat experience you could say you've had? I can give an example if you'd like.
Ooh. Most VR chat experience.
Oh boy.
Most VR chat experience. Probably just nearly any time that I go and hang out with some friends at the Great Pug. I mean, if you go to the Great Pug Publics, I mean, those are fun. I really enjoy those. I know a lot of people say that, oh, Publics aren't, Publics is like, man, that's where all the fun is, honestly. It's not that bad. It's really not that bad. It's just a lot of people messing around still, and it's very like the old times in VR chat. A lot of it is because you have a bunch of stupid avatars, people doing stupid stuff and loud and crazy, but you love it at the same time.
Well, I've noticed VR chat recently has very much older players, like people who've been in VR chat a while, have been kind of hiding away in privates, invite plus, and then the public lobbies have been never changed at all. You'll go into a Black Hat or a Great Pug or Midnight Rooftop, and it's like when I started back in 2020, I can only imagine 2017, but it's like they've never changed. No matter what, you'll still find your wacky Kermits and the people who yell funny 4-letter words or 5-letter words.
Oh yeah, people love those words.
Oh yeah,
they're very popular.
Indeed.
For lack of a better explanation.
Indeed. No explanation needed. I'm sure everyone watching probably very much knows what words we're referring to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do.
Oh yes, they do. More than you could share.
Huh?
You want me to wait for you to straighten yourself back up? You're all in a ball.
Oh,
there you go.
Nothing happened. Not the droid you're looking
for. Yeah, right.
Okay. What were the worlds like back in 2017?
A lot of people would tell you that they were a lot more low effort, but I don't think that's quite the case. I think it's just that it was a lot of effort for people. It's just they didn't know much yet, but what they were doing, it did take a lot of effort for them still, because everyone was just learning as they went. Most people who were playing then weren't, didn't have any prior experience with Unity really, or very little. So it was definitely just there's a lot of game rips, people they'd find a rip of some stage or something from a game, and they'd plop it in and be like, all right, that's good, let's go have fun there. And that was a lot of it.
Indeed. You could see over time as well, from then to now, the worlds have changed so much, at least in quality. You can go back a SDK2 or one world and it'll look so much different than now. Nowadays when you go into worlds, I say this a lot, but VRChat worlds built for example, yourself, looks so much better than modern VR games out, minus a handful.
Oh yeah, and that kind of someone recently, or I guess it's not recent. This stuck with me though. Whoever said this, I can't remember, but they said that VR chat's like a void for VR content, because you want to make a VR experience, but you want a lot of people to play it. Well, if you put a game on Steam, not a ton of people are gonna play it, because you're gonna, you either want to charge money, or it's there's just not a lot of people who are playing actual VR games on Steam. But you go on VR chat and you have pretty much guaranteed some kind of exposure. The community labs thing actually worked out pretty well. I think it's a good system that they've got going at this point. When they first introduced it, I wasn't sure about it, because back in the day everything was hand approved. They would manually go to your world and review it, In fact, my first world was that way. And then they had like a Google spreadsheet that they would accept or deny, and if they denied, they tell you the reason why. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
Cool.
most people who are making VR chat or VR content, I feel like make it for VR chat because there's just more people that you can experience it with. Like you can have your friends come to it super easily, and there's no sort of like investment into it like socially or anything because you're just here. It is like it's a means to an end in a way where you're just here to talk to your friends and hang out. But it's nice to hang out at this place or that place at a certain time, but you're not like stuck here just doing some task or something. You're just here to hang out, and I think that's part of the draw of it.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm not trying to make it spicy, but it's a question I would like to ask. How do you feel about the creator economy thing coming?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I mean, if it's done well, I think it'll overall be a good thing. I think, there will be growing pains. There will definitely be growing pains with that feature. And I don't think it's right to expect it to come out and be perfect or whatever. I think there will probably be some kind of backlash to some of it because, I mean, if you remember EAC, oh man.
Oh yeah, I remember
there's
EAC.
a lot of
Vrchat acted very maturely.
Yes. Yes, and there was also the SDK2 deprecation, which did need to happen at some point, but that was a whole thing as well. I think it'll be a little rough at first, I think, but I think they have the right intentions because they're taking their time with it. Obviously, like they announced their intention to do a creator economy quite a while ago at this point, and I think they're taking their time to make sure everything's right. And obviously for themselves, that legally they're in a good spot because there's a lot of copyrighted content on this game, so that's kind of a bit of a legal sinkhole for them. So I don't know how they're gonna navigate that. I'm no lawyer, but I think overall, I think it'll be a nice thing, provided it's implemented in a reasonable way, which I think they will at least try to. It may not work out that way, but I think they do have good intentions.
I can say a lot of the time when it comes to the community, VRChat staff has always had the community in mind. Like even down to like the rule enforcement. So like people complaining, oh, we need better lobbies, need to be moderated better. So what they do, VRChat groups, moderation tools within VRChat groups, and you see groups now just hanging out in worlds, moderating, just like sleepy furs, stuff like that. You'll see hanging around, and at least it shows that VRChat is paying attention. It is trying to keep its own soul in its growth. So I do agree with you. I think VRChat does have the best intentions with that.
Yes, and a lot of people don't. I don't think a lot of the general community, I feel like, don't quite realize that a lot of people who work on VRChat also have played VRChat throughout the years. So they know how it used to be, and they also find it kind of like a home away from home. So they don't want to ruin that either. So it's in their own personal best interest, not just financially, but also on a personal level. And I think it shows. I really do think that they do what they genuinely feel is best for it most of the time. I don't think that. Some people think they're out to get them, but to get the community, I don't think that's the case. I think they've done a decent job with things, and it is hard. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made that aren't easy ones. So I wouldn't really want to be in that position. I don't envy them.
No, not at all. Well, as I've heard from a lot of different sources, the gamer community is not the easiest to please a lot of the time, and VR is no different there.
Oh man, ain't it the truth? Yeah. So yeah, for sure, you've got people who are. It's like the smallest spark will set off the fire, so you gotta be really careful. And there's also, you can't be too careful because then you can't do anything. So it's a hard line to walk for them. So I understand it.
Well, with VRChat or any game industry, I've always appreciated them being able to stick to their guns. If they said, we're going to add the creator economy, and they stick to it because that's what they said they're going to do, I appreciate a lot more than a company like, oh no, people are mad. Never mind, we're not going to post to creator economy because people are upsetty spaghetti. But at least when they push through the word, at least you know they're going to keep their word. So when they say a thing, you know they're going to do the thing.
Yeah, like sometimes it might take them quite a while to do something, but especially in recent years, like they have been very good about following through on things that they've promised. Like they've been they've made a genuinely huge turnaround with that kind of thing, cuz I will say back in the day it was a little bit of a different story, but they also had a much smaller team, so it was a lot harder for them. So these days they've been pulling people in from the community to work for them, and that definitely shows. So you have, and I think that works really well for both them and just your average person in the community, because for them it's like, oh hey, that person gets to work on something that they really have a passion about, so they're going to have a vested interest in keeping it in a nice way, in a nice stable state for them, how they play and how their friends play. Which also helps us, and they get some talented individual to help them out. So I think that's been one of the best things they've done, is take on people from the community and hire them. I think that's been very positive.
Indeed. I've also heard that they also hired a few people directly out of the modding community too, because I remember before EAC, the modding community was insane. One of the most coolest mods I remember hearing come out of the community. And I may just be a little single-minded here, but there's the mod made for people who are blind to play VR. I thought was really cool.
Oh wow, I don't even know how that would work. I never saw that one. That's
There was I think it was at a midnight rooftop, and I heard people talking about it because a friend of theirs used it. And I could be wrong. If I am, please tell me I'm wrong. I believe it read out the world to the person using it, in a sense. So it's like you went around, you looked at a door, it'll say door player. I'm not sure exactly what it would read out, but it would like explain the world audibly to them.
Wow, that is pretty crazy. Yeah, I never actually did anything with like mods or anything, because I basically told my friends the reason I don't is because, well, I feel like one day they're probably going to remove it, and I don't want to get used to these nice things and then have it taken away. So I guess my strategy kind of paid off in a way. I don't know.
I could definitely agree. I'd never used mods. I've only heard about them. Because a lot of people, like, back before EAC, people be like, mods, look, you can have a personal mirror. But then I'd go up to the mirror in the world. But you got this mirror. Why have your own floating around?
Yeah.
You could have change avatars, but you can go into a world and find avatars. Like, I didn't see a point in using it much, and I kind of, It was what it was. So when, like, for example, when they incorporated the personal mirror, I was like, wow, this is cool. I was so excited. People were like face palming. Lion, it's been there since the beginning. What?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of features as well for me. I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't know if that's really applies to me much. But then I started using it. I'm like, oh, okay, no, I get it. This is pretty useful.
I'm very glad, though, that VRChat staff does hire out of the community. At least it shows, like, the people in here are very talented. You can see in all the worlds hanging around, like even the one we're in, audioOrbs, the many games that get posted here. Like, some of them are really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
And it's impressive that someone will, like, put that much time into creating a thing and then create beautiful work and for fun. Like, I'm baffled, amazed, and pleased that people like that out here exist.
Yeah, it's been crazy to see like how many people are willing to really dump into these big projects these days. Like you have like genuinely like almost game scale projects, that are like of an actual game studio that come out of VRChat these days, and it's kind of crazy to see. And I think the two things that'll make that even more prominent is creator economy, so that'll help a lot. You'll have more incentive for people, and then you've got, well, provided it's implemented well. I think it will be, but we'll see. I'm not gonna say one way or the other. We'll see how it turns out. But and then also whenever world persistence gets added, I think that's gonna be a huge thing.
I do agree, and it would be awesome. Like, coming from me, I would like I'm hesitant on it, but I also think it'd be really awesome to see a game studio like spring out of VR chat with a creator economy, because it was able to help them get funded. People go, I know those people. I played with them in VR chat in a Black Cat with a Kermit. It'd be kind of the things, a lot like the local business getting big in your local hometown, wherever that may be. To me, it'd feel like the exact same thing here in VR chat.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think we will see some of that, provided it all works as intended. But and we'll have to see. I'm not sure what the release window is like for creator economy. I can't remember what they last said, but for me, whenever they talk about like a feature is obviously has a lot of hurdles like that one, like it's gonna have a lot that they're gonna have to think about, and whenever they give any sort of release window, I'm like, I'm not, just when it comes out is when it comes out, because I know there's probably gonna be struggles with implementing it.
Indeed. Okay. Well, from here, I'm going to say we're going to end this here, and I very much appreciate your time. Is there anything you'd like to plug for people? Where can people find you?
I guess just, I'm here in VR chat. That's where I am. But I also have a Twitter. It's also just Kilerbomb with 1 L. It's the same deal. I've had this old Twitter account since like 2009 or something. I never used it then, but hey, I guess I reserved my name. I didn't use it till recently.
Okay. I actually have one more question before we go. Where did you get the name Kilerbomb?
Oh man. Oh, now it's an old name. When I was a kid and I was like getting on like games and stuff, and I was like thinking, it's like, oh, what's a cool name? I was like, oh man, I really like fire and explosions and stuff, so why not bomb? And I was like, oh, what about like a killer bomb? That's cool, right? And then I was like, oh, that's already taken. So I just took off one of the L's, and it's been fine. So I just have 1 L instead of 2, and every platform I've ever made an account on, it's never been taken before I try it, because it's just such a weird misspelling,
Well, thank you again, Killer, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you over this last hour and a half. Thank you.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, no, it's cool to be here. Hope you all have a good night, and thanks for having me.
No problem. Raptor, close us out.
Okay, and on that note, folks, go where the orbs are at, do some sliding, and play some freaking damn good music there, because you're going to enjoy every inch of it. I still do. Have a good one, folks. We'll talk to you later. Bye.